Hello, my name is Doug Boude, and I recently wrote a plugin to incorporate the Wirebox IOC/DI framework into CFWheels. You can read all about it on my blog as to why on earth you would ever want to do that. But I was inspired to do a short video, or hopefully it'll be short, on how to do it, so you don't have to read it and figure it out for yourself. So what I've set up here first is a very simple demo Wheels app. All it does right now is read the records out of a single table, a user table, and dump them to the screen. Just what you see here. Let's take a look at the code real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. There is a single controller with a single uncommented method called index that gets a query of all the users. There's a single view called index that simply dumps it out right here. And then I have a single route right here. That's it. That's all there is to it. So I have a laundry list here. What we want to do is add the ability to output a list of users with their name being a link so that when I click it, it'll send them an email. So that's what we're going to demo. We're going to use Wirebox to do that, and hopefully you'll see why it's useful in that way. So the first thing I want to do is add a route to send email. And I was going to just type this out as I went along, but it seems that recording at the same time as typing doesn't go along well. So I wrote some of this ahead of time and just commented it out. So there's the route. We have a new route called email that goes to the same controller to an action called email. So let's go to the controller and oh, look at there, it's already there. Let's just uncomment it. But we have a function here, an action called email. And at this point, all it's going to do for us is grab the ID that was passed in, put it in Flash, and redirect us back to home. And then our view, on our view, we're going to, right here where it says Flash Messages, that's where we'll output that ID so we can see it. Now we also need to output that list of names. So I'm going to iterate over the user's query using a CF output tag, which is my favorite way to do it. Use the link to, create a link composed of the user's name, the route, the email, and extra parameters being their ID. So let's save all this and reload the app and see if it works, which it ought to. Alright, so now we have our list of users, and if I click a user, there's the ID that got passed in. Okay, now the part that I didn't pre-write. Let's tie Wirebox into this app. First thing we're going to have to do is actually download Wirebox, so let's do that. See if I can find it real quick. This might have been one of those things I should have already had in place. Download Wirebox. Wirebox. Got ourselves a zip file here. We are going to extract this to the root of our project, which in this case is demo app. I'm going to create a folder for Wirebox and put it there. Hopefully I did that right. Let's find out, shall we? Demo app, Wirebox. Yep, that looks right. Okay, so we have Wirebox in place. That's the first step for incorporating Wirebox, obviously. Okay, now we want to add the Wirebox plugin, which I wrote, which plugins come as a zip file, as you're probably aware. So let me see where I've already got it used once. There it is. Let me just copy that and put it into my demo apps plugins directory. Voila. And now when I reload the app, it should install the plugin. Now we'll know because this plugin creates a default configuration file for you. And I'll show you where that's at. Here's our demo app. In our config folder, we now have a Wirebox config CFC. That's where we're going to configure some things. That gets created by default. Okay. So now we basically have the Wirebox plugged into Wheels. That's all there was to it. Now the next thing that I do and recommend is that you create another folder specifically to hold your services. And I am fond of the name services, so create a folder and call it services. And that is to distinguish them from the Wheels models. It's probably not a good idea to mix them together. Okay, so now that we have done that, let's go ahead and create a service object. And let's create that email object we talked about. It won't really send an email, but you'll be able to get the point. Let me refresh this so I can see it. There she blows. New component. Now there's nothing special to do when you're writing these components. You don't have to extend anything. You can write them however you want. So let's give it an init method. I can see my typing is going to be really, really slow. And I'm not going to do anything special. At this point, I'll just return this. And let's say that our service is going to need some information in order to send an email, right? Like the name of the email server. I'll correct that in a moment. Okay, and what else? Well, we'll just leave it at that because you know you could add, if you could add one, you could add 1,000. And then we have to save that information once it gets passed in. We'll just save it here. There, now it will be a part of our component. And let's add another method. Call it send mail. And I'm going to stay very unfancy with all the attributes and things. And send mail is going to need an ID of a person. Who am I supposed to send email to? And I need to get the name of get the email address of this person, right? That's going to be in my model. I'm going to find by key. See if I can remember how to do this. I think that was the name of the email address. Let's see. Email, okay. Without testing it, I think that should do it. And then rather than actually send the email, I'm just going to send back a message so we know that it actually did it. Okay. Now you'll notice I referenced the Wheels model function in here. How does this component know about Wheels? Well, it doesn't. And how does it know, where does this thing even get created? We could do it all manually somewhere, but that's where the beauty of Wirebox comes in. It makes it so we don't have to do that. So let's go into our Wirebox config component that was created for us by the plugin. You can read through all this yourself at some other time. Down here below, add your Wirebox object mappings below. This is where you're going to make the magic happen, and we describe to Wirebox how to build this component whenever we ask for it. Now, there are many ways this can be accomplished, and if you ever read the Wirebox documentation, you'll see that I'm just going to do one way. So first we start out with a method called mapPath. We give it the path to our service layer object. Okay. Now, Wirebox lets you do this cool thing called chained dependency methods, something like that. That you can chain methods basically, which is cool. So the first thing we want to do is tell it, when you give this to me, when you create it, make it a singleton. Okay, that's the first aspect of this. Next, in our init, we needed to pass in a value called email service, right? So we're going to pass in an init argument. The name of it is email service, I believe. Let's just email server. Okay. Email server. The value of it, we're going to use an annotation or a key here called DSL, which means domain specific language. The plugin provides us the ability to access parameters in Wheels, or settings rather, we'll just say that. Typing too fast. And the name of the parameter we want to grab out of Wheels is email server. Okay, now what else? Is there anything else Wirebox needs to know about this when it creates it? I don't believe so. During the initialization, that's really all that's required. So, oh, no, there is one more thing, isn't there? This other method we're using refers to Wheels model. We need to tell Wirebox, give this service layer object the ability to utilize the Wheels model method. We're going to do that with a method called mixins. And the plugin provides a mixin variable called WheelsORM that you will add to your chain whenever you want that service layer object to be able to utilize Wheels models. Okay, let's save that. Let's make sure we have the setting in for the email server in here. Email server equals DougBoude.com. Okay. Now when we reload, it shouldn't complain, I don't believe. Unless I've forgotten something. Let's reload. Okay, didn't complain. That's good. Now, when we click on a name, that name's going to have the email route. It's going to hit our controller's email method. This email method is going to ask for the email service. So if all goes well, we won't see an error, but that's what we should know what to expect. Whoa! It worked. Worked like a charm. Okay, so now I've implemented the Wirebox into Wheels with that plugin, and I know this was a fast demo. There's a lot more to Wirebox. In the READMEs, I have READMEs in the plugin, or one called readmedude.txt. There's a link to the Wirebox documentation. There's examples in there. And if you go to my blog, you'll see you can download a whole sample app that utilizes a couple of different service layer objects using the Wirebox plugin. So I hope you found this helpful, and appreciate any feedback. Thanks.